Aloha and good afternoon. We begin with some breaking news out of Nevada. Authorities there just wrapped up a press conference following a shooting on the campus of UNLV, and that shooting has ended with the suspect being reported dead by authorities.
Yeah, police say there appear to be multiple victims. We want to play some of what the press conference that wrapped up just moments ago.
We do have one suspect down. Of course, we have no idea on the motive. There are a number of victims that have been transported to area hospitals, so I don't want to give you false information and tell you how many victims that we have, but we will be providing that update very, very shortly. I want to assure the community there's no further threat. We are continuing the investigation here. This is still a very active and dynamic scene, so if you can avoid the area, we would appreciate it.
We do have a reunification center that is opened up at the convention center. That's at the North Hall. It will take time to transport students over to that area, but if you can't get a hold of your loved ones right now, your kids or somebody that you're concerned with, then that would be the place to go.
Hearing all these things, like, you just don't know what to do. You just you're calling your family, you're calling people, you're texting your friends, like, hey, I love you guys. I don't know what's happening, like, because he could burst through the door any minute.
I've only seen stuff like this happen in the movies or in the news elsewhere. I never thought it would happen here in my own community, so it was definitely terrifying.
And this just in from Las Vegas police. They posted on X that they know there are 3 victims, but the unknown extent of their injuries. Now, officials say the shooter was at the Beam Hall Frank and Estella building, which is home to UNLV's Lee Business School. The university told students to run, hide, and fight. Again, the school says there is no threat at this time, but campuses are closed out of an abundance of caution.
Happening today, convicted killers Stephen Brown and Haley Danduran are expected to learn their fate in court this afternoon. They're set to be sentenced for killing Telma Boinville in a Pupukea home in 2017. Earlier this year, a jury found both of them guilty of murder, kidnapping, and burglary. They face a life sentence in prison without the possibility of parole because of the multiple felonies. Hawaii News Now will have team coverage of the sentencing. Be sure to tune in to our evening newscasts beginning at 4 p.m. It's been nearly 10 months since a McKinley High School student was killed while walking to school, and now the suspect has formally been charged. 46-year-old Mitchell Miyashiro is facing 4 charges, including first-degree negligent homicide and driving without a license. 16-year-old Sarah Yara was killed in February when she was hit in a marked crosswalk on Kapi'olani Boulevard. She died right in front of her twin sister. Miyashiro turned himself in the next day but was released pending the investigation. Yara's mother says she never thought they'd see justice.
Happy because Phoebe and I was just talking about Sarah just last night, and she was in tears thinking about her sister. All she wants is justice for her sister, and I'm gonna go pick her up in school, and I think she'll be excited to know that.
In a statement, the prosecutor thanked Yara's family for their patience and said investigators had to wait for forensic evidence to be collected and analyzed. We're told a bench warrant will be issued for Miyashiro's arrest.
Admitted killer Randall Saito is back in the psychiatric facility he walked away from in 2017, hoping to prove that he did not belong there. Saito was transferred yesterday morning from the Halava Correctional Facility, where he served 5 years for escaping from the state hospital in Kaneohe. He spent decades at the hospital after he was acquitted by reason of insanity for the 1979 killing of Sandra Yamashiro. After escaping in 2017, he caught a plane to Maui and then California, where he was captured 3 days later.
He had IDs, he had airline tickets, he had cash. I mean, there was such a dereliction of responsibility by the people in charge, but they got complacent.
After Saito's escape, the state spent $160 million to expand and improve the hospital's security. Ousted former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is leaving Congress. The California Republican voted out of office in early October, said he will resign at the end of the month. In a video posted on X, he says now is the time to pursue his new passions. He did not go into detail about his next move. McCarthy's exit further cuts the already narrowing GOP majority in the House following the expulsion of Representative George Santos. His departure is expected to cause a special election in California. Meanwhile, in the presidential race, tonight's fourth Republican debate will feature 4 candidates, and the GOP frontrunner, former President Donald Trump, will skip it again. Mr. Trump is focused on President Biden, whose recent comments about why he's running are drawing attention. Robert Costa has more.
In just 40 days, voting begins with the Iowa caucuses, and 2 increasingly competitive Trump alternatives might agree on one thing.
We need to stop with the culture of losing, and we need to create a culture of winning.
The only way we're going to win the majority of Americans is when we leave the negativity and the baggage behind.
Sources tell CBS News they expect former Ambassador Nikki Haley, who is rising in the polls and winning more support from donors, to try to outshine Florida Governor Ron DeSantis at tonight's 4th GOP primary debate in Alabama. But she and others still face daunting odds against Trump, who commands wide support in the party.
Let's do it in Iowa.
In a town hall in Davenport last night, Trump focused on President Biden, a sign he's put his Republican rivals in the rear view. And if elected, he pledged to wield sweeping executive power on day one, which Biden officials warned were the words of a possible dictator.
He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, no, other than day one. We're closing the border, and we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator.
President Biden, meanwhile, has returned to Washington from fundraisers in Boston, where he told donors he's not sure if he would be seeking a second term if his predecessor wasn't in the race.
Robert Costa, CBS News.
An effort to make more housing available for fire evacuees is making its way through the Maui County Council. Members advanced a Mayor Bisson proposal to give tax breaks to short-term rental owners who rent long-term to displaced residents. However, some rental owners testified against the idea in a hearing yesterday, but the mayor is calling for a shared sacrifice.
Concerns that have been sent to me and the emails that come to me is that they'll be losing money. And the answer to that is, that's right. They will be losing money. But what they will be gaining is much more.
My heart goes out to all of you. You have no idea how much we care and how much we give and how much we love you. But we can't afford to do that if we don't have the option of our vacation rental.
The public will have another chance to testify on the bill next week, Friday.
Maui wildfire victims have until next week, Monday, to apply for FEMA aid, including business loans and help with housing. The Red Cross is working with FEMA to get the more than 6,000 people out of hotels and into long-term housing. Governor Green and Maui's mayor are proposing incentives for rental owners to take on fire evacuees as tenants.
Individuals coming together, and without that coalition, it really makes it difficult. And I think there needs to be some compassion on behalf of the vacation rental owners to make those properties available, as there's very limited alternate resources here on this island.
The federal government is also helping to build a temporary elementary school near the Kapalua airport that should be ready by February.
Following his speech yesterday marking 1 year as governor, Josh Green joined our Spotlight Now team. Here's some of what they discussed.
The greatest part of the trauma revolves around housing, like you say. We have to move those 6,500 individuals that are currently in hotel rooms, 6,554 as of this morning. We need to move them into long-term rentals. No one yet has kind of seized the moment and grabbed a bunch of short-term rentals and moved them into long-term rentals because they don't have to. Well, we have to make them do this. So the current proposal is for approximately 3,000 families. 2,000 of those families qualify for FEMA benefits. 1,000 families don't qualify for FEMA benefits. They are either COFA migrants or on work visas and so on. FEMA will cover those 2,000 individuals. We need to pay a pretty high rate to get people right now into a 2-year lease so that they're okay for 2 years in a condo, in a house. FEMA covers all that cost. The other 1,000 we will share with philanthropy, donors, supporters, local businesses, part of our One Ohana initiative. That will cost the state, if we split it, $60 million to $63 million per year. Philanthropy covers some similar number. And then we have 2 years to build out Ohanas along people's houses, ADUs, those smaller units, to build out what I believe will be necessary, probably about 3 villages. We can do this. We absolutely can do this. But if people refuse to take a rate that was consistent with what they made last year and get some tax breaks, because the mayor, as you know, proposed to decrease their property tax. It was heard today over at the county council in Maui. If people don't do that, I am going to get serious about this, and I'm going to call for a moratorium on short-term rentals on Maui until we get 3,000 units. I don't want to do that. I want to be very clear. But under emergency circumstances, you know I'm going to pull the trigger. So we will have to do that if we don't have enough housing for our local families on Maui, because they're reaching the breaking point, and we're getting to the holidays. Enough's enough. So anyone who's listening out there who's got a short-term rental, you're about to get a very good offer of what you got paid over the last 12 months, plus some tax breaks. People need to come aboard.
Well, last night there was a town hall meeting for West Oahu residents. They got a chance to voice their concerns over the safety of their community, and they also got to ask law enforcement and their community leaders some questions. Our Jelani Martinez filed this report.
At tonight's meeting, HPD tried to calm fears about the continued violence in West Oahu. One big problem, they're still short-staffed, but they're making progress in other areas, like cracking down on illegal gambling.
Right now, we have 14 active game rooms. When I came in June, we had 22. Okay. Now, I hesitate to celebrate too much because it's going to ebb and flow, guys.
Honolulu police say they've shut down 8 game rooms since May, and HPD is preparing nuisance abatement citations for 5 more. But game rooms are only part of the equation. Waianae residents say they have problems with halfway homes that bring ex-cons into their neighborhood.
Many of them. There's a problem here. There's unmeasurable.
Honolulu's managing director, Michael Formby, says city officials recently met with the Federal Bureau of Prisons about setting up a large halfway house in urban Honolulu.
So rather than people have to go all the way from Waianae to downtown to get monitored for drugs and make sure that they're following the rules, they wanted to be co-located near them.
And then there are complaints about a lack of police officers. Right now, HPD is struggling to fill 415 positions.
I lost about 10 positions already this year, and I probably gained less than that, so we're never catching up.
Since June, the region has suffered a string of high-profile crimes, including the shooting of Richiana de Guzman, several shootings at Waianae Boat Harbor, a stabbing at Makaha Elementary School, and just last week, stabbings at Lahi Lahi Beach Park.
It's been very challenging the last 3 or 4 months with the loss of life, with homeless dying, and with our youth, killing each other. There's a lot of just sorrowness in our community, and I think this is going to give us that hope moving forward, that we all need to be the positive direction and the light.
This is going to be in a positive way if this direction is going to be moving forward with the right legislation, right city, in collaborating together.
Councilwoman Andrea Tupola has asked the city for more resources to keep parks and schools clean and safe. Residents are encouraged to join neighborhood watch groups and call police to report suspicious activity.
So we can't give up. We can't let up. We have to keep disrupting all of this violence and brutality in our community. We can't turn a blind eye to any of it.
Jelani Martinez, Hawaii News Now.
We look now at Hawaii's efforts to protect endangered species. Our Casey Lund has more on this.
Aloha from Waimano Valley. We're in a really special greenhouse. This is the DLNR's, and it's home to some of the rarest plants in Hawaii. Many of these don't exist naturally in the wild anymore, and the work that DLNR, the DOFA, Division of Forestry and Wildlife, is doing to restore them is being, as we mentioned, recognized nationally as we celebrate 50 years of the Federal Endangered Species Act. Matt Keir is with us. He is the lead for the Plant Extinction Prevention Program. Matt, why do you think Hawaii is among 10 states that are being recognized? We have a pretty unique ecosystem here, right?
Yeah, so we have so many rare endangered species in Hawaii, in part because we're in such a unique place in the world. We're so isolated that the plants have evolved here and become unique species, so that 90% of our native plants are not found anywhere else in the world.
And I want to talk also a little bit about the work that is done really out in the field, on the ground, day in and day out through DOFA to bring these plants into places like this, propagate them and get them back out there. This is not easy work or for the faint of heart, right? You guys are in some really tricky areas, correct?
Yeah, so we have field staff that works on all of the islands in remote locations, doing field surveys in thick brush, in steep terrain for days at a time to try to locate some of these rare species and make sure that they don't go extinct.
And some of that work is done by people like Susan Ching. She's a botanist for DOFA, the Plant Extinction Prevention Program. And I wanted to bring you on to talk a little bit about some of the species that are really important, not only to you personally because of the work that you do and what you've dedicated your life to, but really to our ecosystem. Can you tell me about this one right here?
This is Cyanea grimsiana, and the Hawaiian name is Haha. This is endemic to the Ko'olau Mountains of Oahu and is extinct in the wild, and we've outplanted, I don't know, a couple of hundred of these recently.
I'm sure you maybe don't have the exact figure, but can you talk a little bit about it's like success rate when you get these back in? Because the idea is that they reproduce and start keiki plants, basically, right?
Right, we're still waiting for a keiki in the wild. Unfortunately, they are really tasty to a lot of different invasive species. Rats target this genus in general, as well as slugs. Invasive birds will come and consume the fruit, and they are not going to, disperse the fruit. They're getting destroyed. So it has been really challenging.
An uphill battle, and many times uphill in some of the places that you folks work. Susan Ching and Matt Keir with us from the Department of Land and Natural Resources. It's really fascinating and really important stuff. Hawaii is, of course, a very special place. We have more information on Hawaii's rare plants on our website at hawaiinewsnow.com. For now, we'll send things back into the studio.
Thank you so much, Casey, for that report. Let's send you live outside now for a look at Honolulu Pu'owaina, also more commonly known as Punch Bowl. Stay tuned. Right after this short break, we'll have more news and weather in 2 minutes.
Let's give you a look at the 7-day forecast, what you can expect. First of all, today, trade wind weather. Nice, we'll see sunshine. We'll see some clouds, windward and mild with showers drifting leeward at times. That's because the wind's going to be northeasterly 15 to 25 miles per hour. Partly cloudy skies, some sunshine. As a matter of fact, we should see a lot of sunshine today and breezy trade winds. But that's all going to change tomorrow. We have a cold front that's approaching, and that's going to block the trade winds tomorrow. We're going to get some rain. It's going to be mostly Kauai and Oahu, maybe some sprinkles for Maui County, but not a whole lot, as that cold front is going to sag towards the islands, and then it's going to kind of dissipate and then go the other way. So light winds all the way through Sunday. Monday, we start to get the trade winds back. Tuesday, strong trade winds there. Once again, high surf advisory in effect for the purple affected areas, and small craft advisories for the rest of the island waters due to the strong gusty trade winds.
Now to some news from the feeds. For the first time today, the NTSB will convene a roundtable of aviation and medical experts to discuss the topic of pilots' mental health and how to reduce the stigma of reporting it and seeking care. We're joined by Karen Kafa with more on the story.
Yeah, Emily, the Fed's trying to strike a balance here between helping pilots feel more comfortable about speaking up and keeping the flying public safe.
I do want to acknowledge that this can be a difficult topic for some.
The National Transportation Safety Board leading an expert discussion on pilots and mental health.
Let me be clear. The safety risk comes from a culture of silence around mental health, not about seeking help.
Recent research from the University of North Dakota found more than half of pilots avoid seeking health care of some type, fearing they'll lose their FAA medical certification and their ability to fly. That includes mental health concerns, from which experts emphasized pilots are not immune.
They're dealing with their people too. You know, they're dealing with their families, they're dealing with their stresses, and now they're also having to get people to where they need to be during the holiday season, which also can be very stressful.
The case of Joseph Emerson, an off-duty pilot indicted Tuesday on 84 counts in an Oregon court, accused of trying to shut off the engines of a plane mid-flight in October, put the issue of pilot mental health front and center. Emerson told police he'd been depressed for months, if not years. His defense team said he never intended to hurt or put anyone at risk. The government looking to balance passenger safety with the well-being of pilots and other aviation workers.
It's not just the right thing to do. It's the safe thing to do. What's unsafe is pretending the status quo is acceptable.
On Tuesday, the FAA announced a special committee to explore changes to pilot mental health rules, aiming to break down barriers to disclosure and seeking help. And in one of the more powerful moments at today's roundtable, Dr. Ann Suh, a physician from Chicago, talked about her son, a student pilot who took his life in 2021. She said he thought if he sought help, he would have to give up on aviation. And she said in a note that he wrote before he died to her, he asked her to do whatever she could to get the FAA to change the rules so more pilots would feel comfortable seeking help. Emily?
And Karen, so ahead of this roundtable, the FAA announced a committee to look into possible changes to rules regarding pilots and their mental health. What can you tell us about the committee's goals and their timeline?
Yeah, Emily, so one of the pieces of this conversation at the NTSB roundtable today was about how the FAA rules as they currently stand do not offer pilots a lot of wiggle room when it comes to reporting things that they might be feeling about their own mental health. And so this FAA committee is going to meet and see how they can identify and maybe come up with some solutions for removing some of the stigma of reporting those mental health issues. They're going to look at the rules and see what might be changed for a more modern contemporary society. You know, the psychological experts at the NTSB roundtable today talked a lot about all of the stressors that Americans face right now and said pilots are not immune to this. So this FAA group is going to come up with some recommendations by the end of March to present as some possible solutions. They're also going to look into the stressors that air traffic controllers face as well. Similar stressful environment to pilots that also they feel needs to be looked at, Emily.
Some very interesting things to keep an eye on. Thank you so much for your report, Karen.
And don't forget to check out Investigates TV, which airs right after This Is Now on K5. Here's what they're working on.
Next time on Investigate TV Plus, doctors addicted to drugs, sometimes still treating patients.
Well, I was just shocked.
A practice some say leaves patients in the dark.
And once again, that is Investigates TV, happening right after This Is Now. They air on K5, and they got so many they dive so deeply into so many stories across our nation. So be sure to check that out once again on K5 right after This Is Now. We want to recap the top story that we brought to you at the top of the show here. Ashley, we got some new information a short time ago.
Right. So on X, the Las Vegas police posted that there are 3 victims that they know of that are hospitalized from the mass shooting at the UNLV campus. Again, the suspect in the shooting is dead, and there is no longer a threat. Campuses are closed, though, out of an abundance of caution. We did hear from students who described having to shelter in place. The university posted on X that students should hide, run, and be prepared to fight. But thankfully, the threat is over there on the campus there in Las Vegas. Again, the suspect is dead. There are 3 victims that we know of. That number could change as the day develops. So be tuned to stay with Hawaii News Now for any developments that come about.
And this is a live look at the scene. As you can see, it is still a very active situation. We will continue to bring you updates on air and online. We thank you so much for joining us right here on This Is Now.